What if Marvin isn't walking into a street war this time, but into a trap set by a man who never raises his voice, never misses a detail, and never forgives disrespect? What if the biggest threat in Season 5 isn't louder, but smarter? Because the name Pino Bernardi doesn't sound like chaos, it sounds like control. And control is something Marvin has never truly mastered. Marvin has come a long way in Power Book 3, Raising Kanan. He is not the same reckless man from the early seasons. He is calmer. He thinks more before he acts. He tries to keep his temper in check. He works harder to stay focused. But growth does not erase history, and it definitely does not protect him from a new kind of enemy. Up until now, most of Marvin's problems came from the streets, corner crews, rival hustlers, hot-headed soldiers who wanted power fast. Marvin knows how to deal with those men. He understands their language. He knows their moves. If someone disrespects him, he responds with force. If someone pushes his territory, he pushes back harder. That's the world he understands. But Pino Bernardi is not from that world. He is from Manhattan, and Manhattan power moves differently. This isn't about loud threats or random shootouts. This is about business, structure, planning. The kind of crime world where meetings happen in private rooms, not on street corners. The kind where money moves quietly and problems disappear without noise. That's what makes this dangerous for Marvin. Because Marvin reacts, Pino calculates. If Pino is truly a Manhattan mob boss, that means he comes from an organized system. He likely has layers of protection. People above him, people below him, lawyers, political friends, business fronts. That is not something Marvin has faced directly before. Marvin is muscle. He handles problems head-on. He makes sure people respect Rack's name. But what happens when the threat doesn't show up with a gun? What happens when the threat uses paperwork, pressure, and quiet deals instead of bullets? Think about it. If Pino wants something in Queens, he doesn't need to take it by force right away. He can slowly squeeze. He can interrupt supply lines. He can pressure distributors. He can buy out connections. He can turn allies into informants. And Marvin, who is used to solving problems fast, might not even see the damage until it's too late. That's the scary part. Marvin's strength is action, but this kind of enemy wins with patience. There's also pride involved. Marvin has worked hard to earn respect. He has tried to prove that he is more than just Rack's emotional brother. He wants to show that he can lead, that he can control his temper, that he can protect his family. If Pino steps into the picture and starts treating Queens like a business opportunity, that alone is disrespect, and Marvin does not handle disrespect well. Even with all his progress, that fire is still inside him. This sets up a powerful contrast. Marvin is raw power trying to become disciplined. Pino, on the other hand, may already be fully disciplined, calm, cold, strategic. One explodes, the other waits. And in war, the man who waits often wins the first round. That could push Marvin into a position we have never seen before. Not just fighting to protect territory, but fighting to protect his own growth. Because if he loses control now, it won't just hurt business. It could destroy everything he has tried to rebuild in his personal life. And we cannot ignore how this affects Rack. If Manhattan starts pushing into Queens, Rack will need someone strong on the front line. That someone is Marvin. He becomes the shield, the first wall. The one who absorbs the hit. That makes him the perfect target. If Pino wants to weaken Rack's empire, he doesn't go straight for her. He tests Marvin. He studies him. He finds his weak points. And Marvin has weak points. His past anger, his complicated bond with Jukebox, his need to prove himself. This is what makes the casting news so exciting. Pino Bernardi isn't just another villain for action scenes. He represents a shift in the type of war we might see in Season 5. A smarter war. A slower war. A war that attacks the mind before the body. And Marvin, for all his growth, is still learning how to control both. The real question is not whether Marvin can fight. We already know he can. The real question is whether he can stay. calm when the enemy refuses to play by his rules, because if he can't, Pino won't need to fire a single shot to win the first battle. Marvin is standing at a very sensitive point in his life right now. In Power Book 3, Raising Kanan, we have watched him slowly rebuild himself piece by piece. He is no longer just the loud, reckless enforcer who reacts first and thinks later. He has tried to become more patient. He has worked on his anger. He has made real effort to repair his relationship with Jukebox, and most importantly, he has tried to become someone Rack can truly rely on without worrying that he will explode. At the wrong time, that growth matters. But growth also makes him more vulnerable in a different way. Right now, Marvin holds a strong position in Queens. He controls muscle. He oversees enforcement when something goes wrong in Rack's operation. He is the one who handles it. That makes him powerful, but it also makes him visible. If a new organized force from Manhattan wants to step into their world, Marvin is the first name they circle. He is the shield protecting Rack's business. And anyone smart enough to study their structure will understand that breaking the shield is easier than breaking the queen. The problem is that Marvin's strength has always been physical presence and fear. People listen because they know what he is capable of. But if Pino Bernardi enters the picture with a completely different style, that strength may not work the same way. Organized crime from Manhattan would not rush into open conflict. It would test quietly. It would look for weak spots. It would pressure distributors behind closed doors. It would make financial moves that slowly squeeze Rack's network. And Marvin, who is used to clear enemies, may struggle with an invisible one. Another key factor is Marvin's emotional balance. Yes, he has grown. Yes, he has shown more control. But control is strongest when life is calm. What happens when he feels cornered? What happens when someone disrespects his territory in a way that feels personal? A Manhattan mob boss stepping into Queens is not just business. It is a statement. It says your block is open for negotiation. And Marvin does not negotiate his pride easily. There is also pressure from inside his own family. Rack expects results. She expects loyalty and discipline. If Manhattan begins interfering with supply lines or money flow, Rack will demand answers. And Marvin will feel responsible. He may push himself harder. He may try to solve the issue quickly to prove he can handle bigger threats. That urgency can lead to mistakes. And against a calculated opponent, one mistake is enough. We also cannot ignore how different environments shape different leaders. Queen Street power is built on respect, reputation, and visible strength. Manhattan organized crime is built on structure, planning, and quiet influence. If Pino Bernardi represents that old-school system, then he likely has connections that stretch beyond the streets. Business owners, lawyers, maybe even political ties, that kind of network cannot be intimidated with force alone. You cannot scare paperwork. You cannot punch legal strategy. And that creates frustration for someone like Marvin, who solves problems face to face. This situation could also test Marvin's sobriety and mental discipline. Stress is the real enemy of growth. If Season 5 places him under constant pressure, watching territory slowly tighten, watching money slow down, watching allies grow nervous, that stress builds. And stress can trigger old habits. The writers have carefully shown us Marvin trying to become better. Bringing in a Manhattan boss at this moment feels intentional. It feels like the universe asking him, have you really changed, or were you just comfortable? From a storytelling point of view, this is the perfect time to challenge him. If he were still reckless, the conflict would be simple. But now that he is trying to be disciplined, the conflict becomes deeper. Does he stay calm and learn a new way to fight? Or does he fall back into the version of himself that believes violence fixes everything? That choice could define his entire arc in Season 5. Most importantly, Marvin is no longer just fighting for territory. He is fighting for identity. He wants to be seen as stable, as reliable, as strong in a mature way. If Pino Bernardi enters and exposes cracks in that stability, it becomes more than a gang rivalry. It becomes personal evolution versus external pressure. And that is what makes this setup powerful. Marvin may be stronger than ever before. But strength alone does not win wars against men who play the long game. Pino Bernardi is not just another name added to the cast list. If he truly steps into Season 5 as a Manhattan mob boss, then he represents a different level of power that Raising Kanan has only lightly touched before. Queens has always felt raw and street-driven. Deals happen fast. Problems are solved fast. Respect is earned face-to-face. But Manhattan crime operates in a smoother, more controlled way. That is where Pino becomes dangerous. A man like Pino does not need to shout to be heard. His power likely comes from structure. He probably has a clear chain of command, soldiers who follow orders without question, captains who manage business quietly. Every move would be planned in advance. That is very different from the unpredictable energy we see on the Queen side. If Marvin represents emotion mixed with muscle, then Pino represents patience mixed with strategy. There is also the image factor. A Manhattan mob boss carries a different type of reputation. He likely dresses clean, speaks calmly, meets in offices or private restaurants instead of abandoned warehouses. That image alone can shift the tone of the show. It adds a layer of organized crime politics. It shows that the streets of Queens are now being noticed by bigger forces. And when bigger forces notice you, it is rarely a compliment. If we think about casting, the role of Pino would need someone who can command respect without raising his voice. An actor who can look calm while delivering a threat. Someone who makes silence feel heavy. Because that is the kind of villain that would truly challenge Marvin. A loud enemy excites Marvin. A quiet one forces him to think. And thinking under pressure has never been his strongest skill. Another key detail is how Pino might view Rack's empire. He would not see it as personal. He would see it as opportunity, numbers, territory, profit margins, where Rack and Marvin see family and loyalty. Pino might see expansion and business growth. That difference in mindset changes everything. It means he would not respond emotionally. If someone disrespects him, he would respond strategically. If someone attacks his crew, he would calculate the best return move. That calm reaction can frustrate someone like Marvin, who expects visible retaliation. There is also the possibility that Pino has deeper connections. Organized crime often survives because of influence, legal support, business fronts, people in powerful positions who owe favors. If that is the case, then this is not just about street battles. This becomes about influence versus force. And influence is hard to punch. It is hard to shoot. It hides behind paperwork and quiet meetings. That type of enemy forces Rack's crew to adapt or fall behind. From a story perspective, introducing Pino at this stage raises the stakes naturally. The show has already built strong street-level drama. Bringing in a Manhattan mob boss signals growth in the world of the series. It tells us that Queens is no longer small time. It has become big, enough to attract organized crime attention. That shift expands the scale of conflict without losing the personal tension. Most importantly, Pino's personality could serve as a mirror to Marvin, where Marvin is trying to become disciplined. Pino may already be fully disciplined, where Marvin struggles with anger. Pino may rarely show emotion. Where Marvin acts quickly, Pino may wait. That contrast creates natural tension without needing constant violence. Every conversation between them would feel like a test. Every meeting would feel like a chess move. If Season 5 truly leans into this dynamic, then Pino Bernardi is not just a villain. He is a system, a machine built on patience and power. And fighting a machine is very different from fighting a man. It requires strategy, restraint, and unity. The question is whether Marvin and Rack are ready to face someone who does not fight for respect, but for complete control. If Pino Bernardi truly begins moving pieces in Season 5, the real storm will not start in Manhattan. It will start inside Rack's empire, because when an outside force applies pressure, cracks appear from within. And Marvin will be standing right in the center of that pressure. not just as muscle, not just as a brother, but as the frontline defender of everything Rack has built. The first impact would likely be financial. Money is the heartbeat of their operation. If supply chains get interrupted or distributors begin switching sides quietly, Rack will feel it immediately. And when Rack feels pressure, she demands answers. Marvin will take that personally. He will see it as his job to fix it fast. That urgency can turn dangerous because organized crime does not collapse under quick retaliation. It absorbs it and responds with something colder. Imagine Marvin trying to solve the problem his usual way. He tracks down someone who looks suspicious. He sends a message. Maybe he uses force to remind people who controls Queens. But what if that reaction is exactly what Pino wants? A rushed move. A loud statement, something that attracts attention and makes Rack's operation look unstable. Pino could use Marvin's reaction as proof that Queens is not disciplined enough to compete. That is how strategic enemies win without firing many shots. There is also the emotional cost. Marvin has been trying to rebuild trust, especially with Jukebox. He has worked to become more present, more stable, less explosive. But when war begins, personal growth is tested. Long nights, constant threats, watching over his shoulder. That kind of stress can drag a man back to old habits. If he feels like he is failing Rack or putting Jukebox in danger, that pressure multiplies. And stress mixed with pride can create reckless decisions. The bigger issue is that this conflict may not stay between Marvin and Pino. It could grow into Queens versus Manhattan. If Rack refuses to back down and Pino refuses to retreat, the situation escalates. Crews pick sides, alliances shift. Smaller players try to survive by choosing whoever looks stronger. That instability creates chaos in the streets, and chaos is bad for business. Rack understands that. She prefers control, but control becomes fragile when a larger system pushes against it. There is also the possibility of negotiation. Rack is smart. She may attempt to sit at a table and talk terms, divide territory, share profit, create boundaries. But even that is risky. Because sitting at the table with someone like Pino means admitting he is powerful enough to demand respect. And Marvin might struggle with that idea. To him, negotiation could feel like surrender. That difference in mindset between Rack and Marvin could create tension inside their own family. From a storytelling angle, this is where Season 5 could become its most intense chapter yet. Not just because of violence, but because of choices. Every move will matter. Every reaction will carry weight. If Marvin learns to slow down and think, he could surprise everyone. He could grow into a true strategist. But if he lets pride lead him, he might hand Pino the advantage. The most powerful possibility is that Pino does not aim to destroy them immediately. He may aim to weaken them slowly. Cut off resources. Isolate allies, create doubt, make their own people question leadership. That kind of war is psychological. It attacks confidence, and once confidence cracks, loyalty follows. Marvin will need more than strength to survive that kind of battle. He will need patience. Something he has only recently begun to build. In the end, this conflict is about evolution. Queens has ruled its space through force and loyalty. Manhattan may arrive with structure and influence. If these two worlds collide, someone will have to adapt. The question hanging over Season 5 is simple but heavy. Can Marvin become the disciplined protector Rack needs against a system built on strategy? Or will his instincts pull him into a fight that Pino Bernardi has already planned 3 steps ahead? If this conflict grows the way it feels like it could, then Season 5 will not just be about survival. It will be about transformation, because when a powerful outside force challenges an empire, everyone inside that empire is forced to reveal who they truly are. And for Marvin, this may become the moment that defines his entire legacy in Raising Kanan. The first major shift could come in the form of loss, not necessarily death right away, but loss of control, loss of territory, loss of easy victories. Marvin has spent seasons proving he can handle problems quickly. But if Pino Bernardi plays the long game, Marvin may find himself reacting instead of leading. And when you are always reacting, you are already behind. That realization alone could shake him. It forces him to accept that strength without strategy has limits. There is also the strong possibility that Jukebox becomes part of the pressure. Marvin's love for his daughter is both his softest spot and his biggest motivation. If Pino is smart, he studies that. He may not directly attack her, but he could create situations that put her close to danger. Even rumors or small threats would be enough to trigger Marvin's protective side. And once Marvin feels that his family is at risk, calm thinking becomes harder. That emotional pull could lead him to make a bold move meant to end the war quickly, but quick endings rarely happen in organized crime battles. Another prediction is that Rack may be forced into a choice she never wanted to make. She trusts Marvin, but she also knows his weaknesses. If things spiral out of control, she might limit his authority. She might take negotiations into her own hands. That could create tension between them. Marvin wants to prove he is capable. If he feels sidelined, pride may push him to act independently. And acting alone in a situation this complex could be dangerous. There's also a chance that Pino survives longer than expected. In many street conflicts, enemies rise and fall quickly. But a structured mob boss is harder to remove. He has layers of protection. Even if Marvin strikes one part of his network, the system continues running. That means this rivalry could stretch across multiple episodes, maybe even beyond one season. A long-running enemy forces character development. It forces adaptation. And that is where Marvin's true test lies. This could also be the season where Marvin finally earns a different kind of respect. Not fear-based respect, not reputation-based respect, but strategic respect. If he studies Pino, if he learns to wait, if he makes one careful move instead of 10 emotional ones, he could surprise everyone. Viewers have seen his growth slowly build. Season 5 might be where that growth is fully proven, but the road to that moment will not be easy.